Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Mursaleen amma ba'd. The question is asking about Maytah, which is meat that has not been slaughtered according to the conditions found in the Sharia to make the animal halal, whether the animal has died naturally or whether it's been stunned or water bath or whatever, or it's been hunted by someone and the name of Allah has not been mentioned over it, or predators have sought on this prey and the animal that's left over. All of this is known as Maytah, carry on, meat which has not been slaughtered correctly according to Islamic conditions found within the Sharia. Now the question is asking, we know that the meat is haram, but what about the bones? What about the things that come from the animal, such as cheese and the milk and the hair and etc.? Now the ulama have differed when it comes to, so there's a few things here. So you've got the animal in front of you, right? The animal itself is haram, and there is no difference of opinion between the ulama on that because it has died and it hasn't been slaughtered according to the conditions found in the Sharia, such as the jugular being cut, as well as the esophagus and the windpipe, the name of Allah being pronounced over it. These are from the conditions. It has to be a Muslim, etc. There are certain conditions which we don't really want to discuss right now. If those conditions are met, then it is Maytah. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says more than one place in the Quran, Maytah has been made haram for you. So there is no difference of opinion on that. The difference of opinion now comes on, what about those things which are not connected to the meat itself? So now the hair, the fur, the wool, the milk in the udder, and then if that turns into curd and cheese, etc. What do we do with those things? What about the bones? So now say you've got a carcass and the animal kind of just rots away. Now you've got this carcass that's left over. Can we benefit from those bones? Or let's just say that the animal has been stripped off all of its meat and then the bones are left, and they use these things in certain products as well. Are we allowed to benefit from them? Now, the majority of the ulama have said no. Once the animal has died like that, without the name of Allah being pronounced, without the conditions in the Sharia, then وَحُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ الْمَيْتَةُ. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ الْمَيْتَةُ. That's it. Maytah has been haram for you in all senses of the word, meaning anything which is connected to the animal itself. The Hanafis, and this is the view of Sufyan al-Thawri, and it's also the view of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and it's also a view which is supported by Ibn Taymiyyah, which is that the meat itself is haram. As for the hair, as for the milk, as for the bones, these things are not haram. These things are not haram according to them. The reason why they have said that is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made haram the meat. As for the bone itself, the bone is tahir. As for the hair itself, and we've talked about this previously in different classes before, the hair is an extension of the face. The hair is an extension of what you find on the body. So as long as the skin part of the hair, meaning the root which is connected to the hair, as long as that is not connected to the hair, then the hair is separate from what is connected to the actual body itself. And they've said the same thing when it comes to the actual bone as well. They said that the bone is not connected to the actual meat, especially when the bone dries out. Then it takes a separate ruling to the meat itself. And they will bring ayat and hadith. Now, all of this has got to do with the ijtihad. There isn't anything clear from the kitab or the sunnah. So the majority have said, well, Maytah, we understand Maytah to mean the actual animal itself. Whereas the others have said, well, in our ijtihad, we refer to the Maytah as being the meat itself. As for things which are separate and not connected to the meat, especially it doesn't carry the meat, because when the bone has dried out, when the tooth has dried out, when the bristles or the suede or the leather, etc. has dried out, this is now where we can find the discussion. What's the correct opinion? For me, what seems to be the more correct view is that all of it is haram. All of it is haram. And the reason why is because from this mas'ala, there are other masail that come. So for example, can you have a broth from the bone of the Maytah? If we were to say that the bone itself is tahir, which is what the Hanafis have said, Ibn Taymiyyah supported this, then can you then get that bone and put it in a broth? The majority have said no, because it is part of the Maytah. But then also from that, you're getting extracts from something which has an asl which is najis. An asl is something which is not permissible. Therefore, for me, what seems to be more correct and what seems to be safer as well is that it is not permissible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةُ, everything in that Maytah is included. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to wash your face. It means the entire face. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to wipe over your head. That means the entire head. Therefore, the entire Maytah. Another thing so that's a principle in usul. Another principle in usul is something which is known as al-istishab. And istishab basically means that if you are not sure, then you go back to the original ruling. So if the original ruling is that the Maytah, all of it is haram, then we will say that all of it is now included. Unless you've got evidence to say that this is separate from that, then we would say that you would need dalil for it. As for the qiyas that they use from the hair and the wool, etc., then this is different, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions it in the Quran that min aswafiha wa ubariha wa athathiha mata' ila hin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it's wool and it's hair, etc. These things, the ulama have said, okay, well, if it's cut off and it's not connected to the actual body itself, then it takes a separate ruling. So there isn't any analogy between hair and wool with bones and the marrow and the things which are actually connected to the Maytah. So for me, what seems to be more correct is that it is not allowed, but there is a strong difference of opinion on it. We've also talked about istihlak and istihala, meaning, say you started off with marrow or gelatin from an animal which is Maytah, but then it changes or it completely absolves, istihlak. We talked about this previously. Then inshallah we can see that there is a bit more flexibility in that. And I would imagine that most of these things do then, when we're talking about products and especially cosmetics, etc., these things do then disappear or at least change. But there are certain times where a person will be actually engaging with the bone itself or things like that itself. Then what we would say is that these things you need to look for an alternative. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grants us all tawfiq and success, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the best rizq in the life of this dunya and the rizq of firdaus in the akhirah. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على محمد.